Welcome back to the channel. It's FR UK Rugby. This is the home of French rugby in the UK and around the world. We absolutely love the top 14, and the season just gone is in our rearview mirror, and I'm going to take a little bit of time with you and with Joe Worsley to just dissect 2023-2024. And look at that. Look at that, Joe Worsley. Where are you?
I'm sweating in Brive at the moment. So this will be my club for next year. We've had 3 weeks of training. It's been 38 degrees today. And currently there's a barbecue. 100 metres away is a barbecue with a load of rugby players eating their body weight in beef and having a good time, getting to know each other thoroughly. Courtney's in there chatting to everybody and getting to learn a bit more French as he goes on.
How's he getting on?
Good. So he's been here for the whole week. Obviously, they can't chuck him in the deep end straight away. You got to ease him into it. But his opening introduction to the group was in French, which is a good start. They already like him. It's good.
And you? It looks beautiful there, Joe.
It's actually a stunning place. I think Pro D2 is also a very good league. I think at some point we're going to have to introduce everyone in Britain and Ireland to the joys of French rugby. Top 14 is the pinnacle. It's incredible. Pro D2 is not bad either.
Well, let's start with the top 14. I said we're going to just have a quick look back on the season that was, and it was pretty special. And this league has again cemented its position as the biggest rugby league on earth.
Yeah, it's been an incredible year. I thought the World Cup might take some of the light away from the top 14, especially when they got knocked out in the quarterfinals. The French were livid. They were shocked. They expected that the team would be competing for that in that final. But that's not had any kind of detrimental effect on this league. It's been in record crowds, average crowds of over 15,000, a new contract signed for £700 million for 5 years. The league is getting stronger and stronger. It's been, frankly, an incredible year of rugby here.
And there's been some standout moments as well. I'm thinking, although it wasn't quite the season Bayonne wanted, that trip to San Sebastian was a special night. The semi-final weekend in Bordeaux, the final in Marseille. There's been some box office moments.
Yeah, they have. I mean, the average crowds are one thing, and then they're filling up stadiums when they go to Spain is a whole new ball game. And obviously, the final itself was an incredible spectacle in terms of the event. Shame about the result for UBB, but Toulouse were epic in that final. But that weekend in Bordeaux, Rugby Town, the whole town was out for the rugby. 2 days, Saturday, Friday, they're out for the rugby. The whole town excited about it, getting into it. The buzz around the place was incredible. I'm looking forward to next year for us going out, hopefully taking out some fans with us as well and enjoying that whole semi-final experience live.
100%. Let's just deal quickly with the bottom of the table because Oyonnax came up and Oyonnax went back down. How difficult is that gap to bridge? Obviously, we've seen Oyonnax didn't manage to do it. Just give us, you're aspiring to do that yourself at Brive. How big is that challenge?
Yeah, so this is a huge challenge. So you have to appreciate the playoff is close enough to the end of the top 14 season. There aren't many players left on the market. Most players are signed around February, March. And then you're left with a certain number of players at the end of the season from teams that get relegated, might try and offload some players. And obviously some foreign players might be in the mix too. So if your team's significantly well-funded, they could maybe, and ballsy, they could sign people early. But they lose that final. If you play incredibly well all year and you lose the final, then you lose the accession match, then you are going to be in Pro D2 with a squad that's very expensive. So it doesn't really happen that much. So Oyonnax, they made a few signings, but the majority of the squad was a team that was there in Pro D2, and they couldn't quite get it right. It was quite clear early on that Oyonnax were going to go down, and I think that UBB game where they scored at the death after a catastrophic error from Oyonnax was the nail in the coffin in terms of their chances of staying in the top 14. That was Christmas. So it's pretty clear to everybody that Oyonnax were going to be the team that went down. But the team who are going to finish above them, the team who were going to play that match against whoever lost the final of Pro D2, no one was 100% sure. We had several contenders in Montpellier, Bayonne for a little bit, Lyon clubs with massive budgets were fighting to stay in that league.
Just quickly, Joe, I need to work on my pronunciation of some of these French teams. Can you say Montpellier again, mate?
Montpellier.
Montpellier. I'll do that. Yeah, it was. You were talking about signings and stuff. There was obviously some signings that Montpellier were keeping under wraps until they cemented their top 14 spot. But yeah, that how would you break the league up? Because it almost seemed like you had the sort of the top bunch, the middle bunch, and then this bottom bunch. How do you make sense out of that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You look at the budgets of the teams. Clermont were fighting in that relegation fight. Bayonne have a smaller budget, so it's understandable that at one point they were there. But the game, for most of the year, they were a team who were relatively safe because they attacked so well and scored enough points that they stayed. They were always probably going to stay up. But Montpellier, Clermont-Ferrand, who came good at the end of the season, they're two teams with massive budgets. And Lyon have got one of the biggest budgets in the league. So they're really three teams of underperforming in a big way. When you got the kind of money those guys have got, you should be at least in the top six. It's pretty poor recruitment and running of the clubs that have led to those teams being in the situation they were in last year. But again, in sport, we always see that if someone's not managed quite right, if something goes wrong, several injuries, and teams can lose who should be winning, especially ones with big budgets. But those teams were the ones fighting it out for staying in the top 14. After that, you had a group of teams which were doing reasonably well, who were doing okay, which were kind of Cast, Po, with teams that were chipping along all season. And Perpignan is a good example of a team that really batting above their average. And Cast, you could say as well. Two teams with budgets in 11th and 12th in the league who were both fighting for the top six. It's pretty impressive when you get teams. Azama done a great job with USAP to turn them around and making a team who were yo-yoing the whole time, and now a team who finished 8th in the league.
That's a ground I really want to go to as well, Joe. It looks
We've seen their fans have been in a bit of trouble for being a bit too enthusiastic at times, but we can't be too angry with fans for being too enthusiastic. So yeah, I can't wait to go to Perpignan. The atmosphere in that stadium is incredible. But USAP, Perpignan, Cast, Po, they've had good seasons. Teams that have attacked really well and been in that middle kind of area. They could have got,
but not able to quite make the playoff. And you've got those 6 juggernauts, well-funded and much better run clubs. So let's focus on those top 6 teams as well, because I wouldn't be surprised if in a year's time it were the same 6. How do you judge the first year of Stuart Lancaster at Racing 92?
Yeah, so he's one of the teams. If you look above Cast, Po, USAP, you've got Racing and La Rochelle. They're had different seasons. Racing started off very well, and then after Christmas, they dropped off a cliff in a way. As a number of games they lost. Very, very, not very lucky, but they just made the playoffs in the end by the skin of their teeth. And they're a well-funded club with a good player group and a coach with a lot of experience. So Stuart is going to look back at the season, and I think what's going to really chime with him is the difference between France and Ireland. In Ireland, you have players who get rested. You have player group who've come through a system that prepares them for what's going to happen at Leinster. And you know, with these players, you can push them to a certain level and you can train them at this kind of level repeatedly. And they're going to get time off, breaks, and manage to recover, and then come back into it again at certain times of the year. They're going to get fresh and be able to be looked after. Whereas in France, it's 10, 11 months. It's a slog. It's endurance. If you try and hold that level the whole time, I'm not sure it's possible. You have to be able to adapt and give the guys the time off, change the group, have a deep enough squad to rotate the players. So this year, maybe he will try and work out, in this current environment in France, maybe I can't achieve this. I'll start here and work my way towards one day getting to the levels I had before in Ireland.
Well, we'll certainly look at Racing in the future with Owen Farrell part of the machine there. Yeah, But let's just quickly touch on Van, who got promoted. Then I'll get onto the playoffs and semi-final final as we get through the season. This is massive. First time Van have ever got themselves to the top 14. Huge for that part of France. Can you just explain how rugby, the pockets of rugby are across France, and why the Van story is such a good one?
Yeah, it's a big one because traditionally rugby's more of a southern sport, but the farmers and the southern French population really love their rugby. The big cities as well down in the south love their rugby. Paris, yes, you got two very good teams as well now, but outside of Paris in the north, traditionally there's not a huge number of good teams, but now it's growing. There's two in Pro D2 who are pretty good teams in Nevers. Is one of them who's done very well in the last few years. But Van are a Norman team who have such passionate fans, and the local population are really into their rugby. And they're not just a team who are guys come in and pumped a load of money into. Yes, they got some cash, but they're passionate. They've built up slowly over 10, 20 years to do what they've done now. So it's great to see that rugby is spreading into the north parts of France where traditionally it was more maybe football based. And Van are the team with passionate fans who are really going to light up the top 14 next year. I think they're going to find it hard for the reasons we talked about earlier, signing players, having a big enough budget. But I think in terms of motivation and character, they're going to be lacking for nothing.
Well, we welcome them to the top 14. As for just the access match, by the way, it's just whoever invented that idea is absolute genius. The drama, it's just and how close as well. Grenoble were absolutely awesome. But let's the semi-finals. So we had those interesting matchups in that weekend in Bordeaux. Two quite loose, attack-minded, instinct teams and two structured format kind of teams, and it was an interesting clash of styles, and it threw up a couple of absolute belters.
Yeah, they were fascinating games. I remember talking before. La Rochelle had a rocky start to the start of the season. A few of the players came back for the World Cup fatigue, maybe, but as the season went on, they were getting better and better and better. They're a team who can strangle the opposition through just physicality and organised play, just suffocating the opposition. Whereas Toulouse are a team who just, when the moment's right, can just snap you back and go and score some amazing tries. So both those semi-finals were fascinating because of those reasons. And La Rochelle, honestly, until Antonio got that tackle wrong and got red carded, they were in that. They were on top, dominating collisions. That Toulouse team had 3 weeks off before the team that were playing. They weren't fresh. They probably weren't as ready as they could be. And they were on the rocks, that's for sure. So La Rochelle will be ruining the fact that Antonio and then a stupid Wardy making a stupid error, giving 2 red cards, really knocked them out of it. But they were on top in that game, really through purely dominating physically the opposition. Some of the hits and physicality in that game was epic.
And the other one as well, Stade Francais, who just led the table for most of the year, and then at the critical moment, just didn't have enough.
Yeah, but also it's quite refreshing to see that we all love watching rugby, and part of that is that physicality and set-piece dominance that a team like Stade Francais can bring to it. But you need to be able to score. So it's wonderful to see a team like Bordeaux, a team who've lived on their attacking feeling this year, winning that game. Okay, so it was an epic match in Bordeaux. Lucky for the semi-finals. It's great to see. I know I'm probably biased because I was at Bordeaux for 7 years, but it's wonderful to see a great attacking team like that get into a final like they did. Obviously, Stade Francais have recruited Carbonneau from Montpellier and a couple more attacking players. Cocot's retired, so I think next year they're going to be a team who probably will be targeting scoring more points as opposed to targeting a team that can suffocate and not concede many.
And then that final, I mean, I still haven't made sense of what happened on that night in Marseille. It's bonkers.
It is, and it isn't. I think Toulouse played badly in that semi. They nearly lost. They could have lost. I know at the end with the red cards, they got 2 scores up. But it was that close. And they were thinking about their double. They nearly lost their double. So mentally, all week, the coaches would have been reminding them of them being dominated by La Rochelle. So whilst up front they lost Miafu and a couple of other very physical players, the guys going onto that pitch were very clear about the need to dominate physically. They're being dominated by somebody else. So mentally, the motivation for any sport, but especially rugby, is huge. They would have gone on that pitch, the forwards for Toulouse, and been clear about their need to dominate in defence and in attack. And that's what they did from 30 seconds in. Bordeaux, their team was probably more tired. The players that they did pick were shocked they picked Jalibert and Tamifuna. Two players hadn't trained for weeks. They weren't fresh. They should not have played. It's clear now to everybody that players that aren't ready shouldn't play in a final like that. When you chuck in all those things into the mix, you can see why the game could have resulted in 59 points for Toulouse. But honestly, the last 20 minutes, Toulouse were amazing. That last 20 minutes.
I suppose a lot of them were in the last quarter, weren't they, as well? Yeah. It was absolutely incredible. And capping off, obviously, a double and more ski mask action. I found out the origin of the ski masks, by the way. It was from, it was basketball or baseball? Now I've just forgotten which one. Anyway, it's from, I thought that Toulouse had invented that whole thing, but they've taken it from American sport. And
even Courtney was copying some other sport. You've educated me today. I didn't know.
Yeah. I can't remember. I think it might have been basketball. There was a particular team. I'll find it out. But Toulouse brought it into rugby, and I'm here for it all the time. Those are more iconic shots. Jack Willis being carried across the crowd in Toulouse. There's some special images off the back of that.
I'd love to see their change room. Pochino brought his decks with him and was playing house music to the whole team in the change rooms. It must have been pretty special.
They're so effortlessly cool at Toulouse, aren't they? Love it. Right, well, we're going to throw our attention forward. We've got loads of content coming on the channel, so I just remind you to give the video a thumbs up. That really helps spread the word. To leave your comment down below and to hit subscribe on the channel. Your home of French rugby. It's FR UK. Look at that. He's in France right now in the French summer. You better get back to. Have you got a little drink next to you? Have you got a little beer out of shot or something there, Joe?
I've just got Carver, which makes your face go numb. So going back and find an orange juice or something to.
Right, you get back to it. We'll see you on the next one.